Are there some changes when it comes to policies, between US and Canada? Do
Right.
you think a success and the grit to really pursue that, is that something you could be born with, or is that something you acquire?
Yeah.
What is that one thing, about you which no one really knows?
Who's your superhero and what's your superpower?
What is that one capital truth you live by? Growing up in the 80s and 90s, right? Like, we didn't have internet or social media and stuff like that. So you used to read newspapers and you used to talk to people and watch TV and the news and stuff like that. And I think it was a lot easier to kind of digest, and make the decisions. But even when it comes to diet, now you got the keto diet, you got the vegetarians, you got this, you got that. And it's like, which one is right and which one is wrong? It's like, it's just impossible to kind of decipher the information and make the right decisions based upon that.
Do you think that more information is good or less information is good? I mean, because in the 80s and 90s, it was definitely less information.
I think less information is maybe easier, but not necessarily better. I think better filters, and I think something what's going to be big moving forward, it's kind of, and maybe AI can help us with it, is deciphering and fact checking the information across different portals. Because I can tell you, even now,
we couldn't do that in the 80s and 90s.
No, we couldn't. No, absolutely not. I mean, I remember still clearly when I was a kid, like, we couldn't say things. You would disappear.
But you could also, okay, so let me play devil's advocate though, that life was better in the 80s and 90s.
In some ways,
the quality of life for just the everyday American was better. Walking on the streets of New York was better. Walking on the streets of LA was for sure as hell better.
Oh yeah.
It was just better. It was quieter. It was safer. It was, less combative. And so, just playing devil's advocate, I can totally see the benefit of a controlled population, through propaganda or less information, it gets a little chaotic. But I want to go back a little bit whenever you said that capitalism is not the most effective
Here
form.
we come.
Yeah, I think that this is important because I want to hear why, and I think it's important for whoever watches this to see, two guys that can disagree on something and then, hug it out afterwards or whatever. But so my argument for capitalism is that given enough time, the marketplace will always be true. Now, so if you have a long view of things, capitalism is the answer. If you're short-sighted, I believe that capitalism is not the answer because it's a little volatility, but at all times going up, right? And so, when something doesn't go right, all it means in capitalism is that you haven't given it enough time. If you're looking at capitalism as the structure, just the structure, the pure structure of capitalism,
depends what are the goals for
that is the truth. But where capitalism kind of gets in trouble is things from outside the system. So when you introduce social programs into capitalism, you're kind of changing. It's not really capitalism anymore. It's like a pseudo capitalism. Now, I'm not saying those things are good or bad. It's just, it is what it is. Or if you introduce any sort of corruption, it's now kind of a pseudo capitalism. It's people are cheating. If you if you introduce too many rules, then it's kind of a pseudo capitalism. But if you look at capitalism as a whole, given enough time, the market will always correct itself. So, like, for example, man, I wish I had an example on tap, but you'll see things introduced to the market and they'll spike, and they'll be like any sort of fad. That's exactly what a fad is that it came into the market, there's a huge spike, but then the market is going to correct itself, right? So you'll see a new soda be introduced to the market, and there's a huge spike because the marketing is on point and blah blah blah. But given 5 years or 10 years, Coca-Cola is still king, and it's because Coca-Cola has a long view on capitalism. They're stable, they're consistent, they're available. The people like it. They have the right messaging, blah, blah, blah. And they did it for years and years and years. And the market will always correct itself to where, the fads will fizzle out. And but where you introduce problems into capitalism is like the insurance industry, right? Like there's corruption, there is dishonesty, and then there's monopoly, right? Like those are the three issues with the insurance space, and collusion. Like all of those things come from outside of the capitalist system. Like that's not capitalism. Those are foreign items being introduced into the capitalist system, which allows it to decay. But not only decay, but it also extends the amount of time that you need for the market to correct itself. Eventually, people will not buy insurance from the big insurance companies if they keep doing what they're doing. Eventually, whether it's 10 years from now or 100 years from now, eventually they will stop giving them money. And without the money, then they can't operate. So, but that can be tough to wait that long for the market to correct itself. So I do think capitalism is the best system and has created the most powerful nation in the history of mankind in the United States. And you can go to, the list 1 through 5, all capitalist economies, for the most part.
Now, a couple
So,
couple
good.
things on that, right?
But sorry. One more. Let me put the cherry on top here.
Yep.
It also depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to accomplish that everybody is safe and healthy, capitalism is not the answer.
There you go.
If you're looking, if your end game is power or / security and innovation and advancement and staying ahead of everybody else and giving people opportunity, then I think capitalism is the answer. I mean, like you don't see Norway going to the moon. You don't see Norway. We don't purchase phones from Iceland. We don't get our computers. The computer brand that we buy is Dell is not in whatever some socialist country. It's not. It's in Texas. And so if you want those type of advancements, you need capitalism because you need incentive. If everybody is equal and everybody gets the same stuff and everybody is lovey-dovey and hugs it out and everything is fair, then there's no incentive to work harder. There's no incentive to make more money. There's no incentive to be innovative. There's no incentive to do anything outside of the norm. I just collect my standard check every week and live my life. I think that socialism is the perfect recipe for mediocrity is what it is, because it deletes any sort of incentive. So but that being said, there are good things about it too. Obviously, if people are safe and healthy, then that's a good thing. But I think you need a mix of the two, and I think that's what America has become. We do have some social programs. We do have, it's still a capitalist economy, but unfortunately, we have those foreign ingredients as well, like the corruption and the collusion and the monopoly and stuff like that. So
I agree with you to a certain point. I think capitalism, it is the answer, right, to certain problems. But like you said, it's just, what is the goal? What is really the bigger picture? Not necessarily now or the next decade, but 100, 1,000 years from now. What is going to be the real solution, not just for us as Americans or as humans, but for the whole planet and for the whole universe, right? Now, I think consumerism is a problem, right? I think we as people, and again, that comes with the propaganda, right? Where we just gotta consume, food, technology, just buy stuff more and more, right? So I'm excited. I'm excited how the world is going. I agree with you. The 80s or 90s. I think it was a lot better to live in those days. Like I would love to bring the 80s back or the 90s back. Oh my god, they would be so cool, right? Like we didn't
I
have.
think the 90s were better, but
Yeah, the 90s. I think they were better. They were a lot of fun. The 90s.
yeah.
So
well, how is Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
so let's flip the page. So did you know there's a one pretty? I was trying to look it up. There's a one big Canadian insurance company. It's actually American, but they had a division in Canada as well, and they closing down their whole Canadian thing and they selling it off to a Canadian one. Are there some changes when it comes to policies, between US and Canada when it comes to insurances?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's totally different.
Okay.
But what insurance? Like a medical insurance?
No, it was a car insurance. I'm actually trying to look
Oh,
it up.
car insurance.
Yeah, my sister-in-law, she used to work for that company, so she was telling me about that. It's pretty big
Oh,
one. I mean,
Travelers.
Travelers, yes, that's the
Yeah,
one. Yes,
yeah. They're selling the Canadian personal insurance business.
that's right.
Yeah. Interesting. Um, yeah, they're very prominent here in the U.S. But that's personal insurance. What they're selling. So
Mhm.
I don't dig into personal insurance. Only commercial insurance.
I see.
So yeah.
Why not personal? Why only commercial?
Um, in all honesty, I just don't have time for the $12 phone calls. I can't have like you need thousands of people to sign up,
Mm-hmm.
to be your customer. And you get phone calls about, hey, my car insurance went up $12. Like, what the hell's going on? And I honestly, I just don't have time. How I've built our, portfolio and book of business, like there's no way that that's sustainable. Um, and so, where your car insurance may cost $500 or something, $500 a year, we deal with, $1 million commercial policies, where the premium costs $1 million. And so how many people would I have to get? How many $500 policies would I have to sell to equate to that $1 million policy that I sold? So it just didn't make sense to me to chase the personal lines.
Makes sense.
But I mean, there can be some money, and some people, a lot of people specialize in it, and um, it's good if you start down that path and you stay down that path. That's great. You could have the infrastructure to handle that customer service that's required for it.
Hmm.
But I prefer the commercial business where I can, one contact for me, one person, equates to 100 grand in revenue for us. We have hundreds of accounts, but I only deal with 100 people rather than 10,000 people.
I love
So
it. So Zach, what's your claim to fame?
I was selling lawnmowers in California, or sorry, in Indiana, shortly after college, and I would sell lawnmowers to businesses, and the businesses would go on and sell it to people. And so I do like a $10,000 or $20,000 purchase order, and I'd get paid like $750 or something in commission. And I'm like, okay, so I got a little taste of commission. I understood how that worked. And I'm like, okay, I want to sell something that costs $1 million. And so I Googled what is the most expensive thing to sell, and it was insurance. And then I Googled where is insurance the most expensive. So I want to sell the most expensive item in the most expensive place, and it was California. And so
Whoa.
I sold everything I had, and I rented a car, and I packed a backpack. I didn't even have a suitcase. I just packed a backpack with a few pairs of underwear and a couple of t-shirts and a couple of pairs of shorts, and that was it. One pair of shoes, and I didn't pack any long sleeves because I was coming to Southern California. It's 70 and sunny all year round. And so I drove across the country to California wanting to be in the insurance industry. And so I got here and I, started setting up. I would go to the library to use the computer, and I would set up interviews like on, I think it was monster.com at that point. And I went on several interviews. I went and bought a suit at Burlington Coat Factory for $70. and I just had the one. So if there were multiple interviews, I wore the same suit, and then it took me about 6 months to really land a job in the space, but I did, and they gave me a phone and an empty closet and a phone book, and they said, "Hey, we need you to make 300 calls a day.
Sweet.
Good luck." And so that's what I did, and I absolutely killed it. I did really good, and maybe lucky, I don't know, but I feel like the harder I work, the luckier I get. And so I built a significant book of business. And then, like any salesman, I think this is just the natural evolution of any salesman, is that any good salesman or successful salesman, that they eventually think that they can do it better, right? And they're like, I see a lot of waste. There's a lady in a corner, she gets paid more than anybody, and I'm not even quite sure what she does. So if I had
is it
my
a
own,
salesman? You think it's a salesman thing or more of an entrepreneur thing?
yeah, I mean, I would say 70% of entrepreneurs start out as salespeople.
Yep, no doubt.
So, I think both, but I just saw a bunch of inefficiencies, or what I thought was inefficiencies, and I'm like, hey, I think that I could do this better. And so I broke off and started our own firm, and built it up and ended up selling it. And then after that, we started another firm, built it up and sold it. And then we started acquiring other companies in our space where we couldn't find a good solution in the marketplace. So we created a good, a solution for us by acquiring, investing in, or starting our own companies. And then it became this like little ecosystem of companies that all work together. And yeah, so I mean, that's kind of how it naturally evolved. And then, we wanted to do that at scale. And all the way up to that point, it was, my money. But we wanted to do it at scale. And so we launched the Link Fund. And that's where we're raising money from other people to be able to do exactly what we're doing with a few additional key components. And we can do it at scale. So that's kind of the short version of everything that's happened over the last 10 years. But yeah, in 2015, man, I wanted to sell something expensive, and that's how I got to Southern California. But it's made me appreciate everything that I have. Everything that I have, I earned. Everything that even the industry that I'm in, I fought my way in. I fought my way into this space because I wanted to be here. And most people in our space fall into insurance. It's the first job they got out of college and they just never left, or their daddy owned a State Farm agency, or whatever. And I really fought my way in, and even had a bunch of people tell me no. Whenever I was interviewing, I think I got told by 10 companies, maybe a little less than 8 or 9 companies, that they were going in a different direction. They weren't going to hire me. And I'm like, man, you're crazy, dude. Like, I worked my tail off. I'm a collegiate athlete, and a hard worker, and a decent looking guy, and I can carry myself well, and I'm well spoken. Like, I don't understand. But anyways, they told me no, all the big guys, and I got a chance at a little small firm, and never looked back. But yeah, I think that it's really made us I don't want to say pillar, but more of like a beacon in our space, to where people tend to naturally navigate, or sorry, gravitate towards us, because we're movers and shakers and high energy and young. And most people in our space are not any of those things.
Old and boring.
Yeah, the industry is really dusty, and the average
Watch
age.
out, guys! Zach is coming.
Oh, I've already arrived, man. I'm here. But the average age in our space is like 62 and a half.
Wow, that's crazy.
And for a 35-year-old, or 25-year-old, whenever I first got into it, I'm 35 now. But I'm still the youngest. I've been the youngest for 10 years in our space, because we don't have a graduating class every year being introduced into the insurance industry. We just don't have that, which is a double-edged sword, right? It's great as an employee. It's great because I don't have all this competition, and I had free reign to do anything, and I don't have these young studs coming up underneath me. But as an entrepreneur, it's tough because we don't have a ton of talent to be able to recruit. It's not an overwhelming pool of talented people in the insurance space. So anyways, we're trying to bring the cool back to the insurance space.
It's been about a time. Now, so do you think a success and the grit to really pursue that, is that something you could be born with, or is that something you acquire during your lifetime?
I think you acquire it. So when people say what you're born with, I think that is just your first 10 years of life. And people totally dismiss that period in their life because they don't remember it, right? Or first 7 years of your life, or first 5 years of your life. People dismiss it because they don't remember it, which is, natural. That's fine. But what they call it is, were you born with it? I think that people that have parents that are entrepreneurs are more likely to be entrepreneurial. I think that if you have some bad things, not bad things, just if you have some things not go your way. Well, let me rewind here. So I tell my kids this: in anything in life, if something doesn't go your way, there's two ways that you can react. You can get mad, or you can get sad. Those are the only two options. Now, 90% of people get sad. They, why did this happen to me? Why me, God? Why me? Right? That's 90% of people. That's not fair. This sucks. Whatever. That's 90% of people. And there are 10% of people that get pissed. They get mad, and they get a chip on their shoulder. And it may not last their whole life, but it lasts long enough to be entrepreneurial. There's something deep in your subconscious that you want to prove people wrong, even if they never know it. You want to prove them wrong. Like, I was cut from my high school basketball team. Michael Jordan, chip on his shoulder, became the best in the world, right? And you take that and introduce that to your life. My parents got divorced, so I want to prove to them that I can overcome that. And maybe you never announced that, like, hey, I overcame you guys getting divorced. Maybe you never announced that, but there's something deep inside your head that you want to, not be a statistic, or that your friends left you out of a party invitation. It could be anything. You weren't invited to a dinner. Your girlfriend left you for another guy, or it could be anything in life. And there's a seed that's planted that you just want to prove people wrong. You just want to be better, a need to be better. So that wouldn't have happened if that wouldn't have happened if I was better. I don't want that to happen again. And you may not think of it in those terms, but your body and your subconscious does think of it in those terms. Like, we all of us have any animal, the number one instinct is survival. And so it's like putting your hand on a hot stove. You get burnt, you never do that again, right? If you're dating a girl and she leaves you for another guy, that's like putting your hand on the thing. You don't want that to happen again. So your body, nature, will do anything that it can to make sure that that doesn't happen again. I have people on my podcast all the time that I had one lady that spent 3 nights and 4 days in a canoe on the ocean escaping Vietnam. And that was her kind of like trigger, that I never want to be in that situation again. I want to be flying my private jet off, away from Vietnam, not in a canoe as a little girl. And she was like 7 years old or 8 years old. And she's like, I don't remember much. I don't remember much of it, but I remember it was raining. And I remember laying on the bottom of the canoe, but like, I don't even remember how many people were in there. There were a lot. And that's kind of like, hey, I was born with it because it happened in those first 10 years, or, even first 15 or 18 years. People say that they're born with it, but really it's some sort of trigger or a culmination of things that come together that generate that type of deep subconscious or the natural instinct to survive.
So what you
And that's
saying?
the way that we display it. The way we display it is being entrepreneurial, being better, having more money, having bigger muscles, whatever, having some sort of success, some sort of recognition. That's how we display it. Even if that's not our conscious goal, it is our subconscious and natural instincts, bodily instinct to survive. We feel like we need that. Our body and our mind feels like we need that to survive, so those bad things don't happen again.
This
Or
is so.
what our body and what we perceived as bad things happening.
So,
Man, I think that everything is developed, and we dismiss it as people were born with it.
now, what is your chip on the shoulder, man?
You know, I think a lot of things. It was a lot of things. I had the bad breakup was big. High school in general, in high school, I played sports, baseball, basketball, football. Yeah, I played baseball in college, but in high school I was always the youngest in my grade. Always. And so I think that that's where the competitiveness comes from, is that I was always chasing people that were a year older than me, people that had a year more to develop physically, a year more to develop mentally. And so I was always kind of a year behind of everybody. My performance was always there. It was just, and the hustle was always there. But I felt like I always had that carrot in front of me that I was chasing. And I think that just thinking that, hey, I see myself working harder than this person. I see myself working harder than that person, but they're playing ahead of me, or they're coach's favorite or whatever. And I think that built up a lot of resentment in me. And so whenever I graduated high school, I got a scholarship to play baseball. And a little bit of a late bloomer, I guess. Just actually, I was right on pace, as far as developing. I was just a year behind everybody because I started school. Like, I graduated high school when I was 17. And so whenever I graduated high school, like, I left and never looked back. I never go back. I don't have any friends from high school, nothing. And that can sound kind of harsh or even sad, but it was, with all due respect to them, I think they're all great people. It was one of the best things I did for me, is that I wasn't living in, the shadow of other people anymore. And, you get a taste of a little bit of success, and you want more of it. And, yeah, I don't know. And ever since then, I was just super, super motivated. And then, a bad breakup for sure was a huge hit to the ego, and after that, and then that was just like pouring fuel on the fire, and then I just took off from there. And I think that I, after leaving high school and not relying on those friendships, not relying on anything from home, it developed a.
So Zach, when it comes to those experiences, and for the people to kind of learn the tough lessons in their life and have maybe a little trauma in their life too, right? It kind of really, it gives them two options, right? You can stand down, or you can stand down, lay down, look up, and say, "Well, what can I do better now?" And jump back up and make it happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can be mad or get sad.
Maybe be sad a little bit and then get mad.
Yeah.
That doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
It's okay
Yeah,
to cry
that's typically
sometimes.
how it goes.
Okay.
But it's whatever sticks with you. If you're
Now,
sad for a long time about it, then it's not going to motivate you.
I'm really curious, like, how do you apply those personal experiences and lessons, which obviously they work for you, do you apply them in your family, with your kids, with your partners, your employees as well, and how?
So with employees, I'm I'm very jaded and negative when it comes to
Okay.
employees. I think that my standards have dropped dramatically over the last 10 years. Um, you know, it's when you do so much recruiting and you interview so many people, and um, you you have you get to experience their work product or their effort. It's always disappointing as an entrepreneur, generally speaking. As a pretty blanket statement, but I'm always disappointed with people that don't have skin in the game. That I've dramatically lowered my standards, and that ultimately that falls on me. I need to recruit better. I need to hire better. I need to, but just as an entrepreneur, you run into all these challenges where you're in a hurry. You need a body. You need somebody in there. You need like the first one that you know comes in and interviews and handles themselves well or is well spoken. Then you kind of got to jump on it because the job is more important than the culture, especially in the beginning.
Is it?
And um, and
Is
so
it
yeah,
really?
I haven't really troubled myself with being a therapist or trying to draw out too much potential in employees. At this point in my career, I haven't. I'm still pretty young, and maybe when we're more established, that approach will change a little bit. But yeah, I don't know because it's tough to teach. It's tough to teach those things, and I think I've made my peace with that. That
Can teach
you have to
motivation, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to experience the experiences teach motivation. I don't think it's something that you can read in a book and just get, or somebody can talk to you about
Mhm.
and get, right? I mean, it's something that you have to experience. You have to experience getting fired from a job. You have to experience, not being able to make rent. You need to experience, eating SpaghettiOs and peanut butter and jelly just to survive because that's all you can afford. You have to experience those things, and that draws out that motivation. Um, I can't think of a single example where somebody read about motivation and that, sent them on their way, or somebody had to talk to them about motivation and that just triggered something. But I can think of thousands of examples of people that experienced something that triggered that. So, and with my kids, I really this I talk about this on my podcast all the time, is that I really struggle with the idea of teaching those lessons to my kids because the reason that we work so hard as parents is so our kids don't have to go through what we went through, right? Like that's the whole point, that's the whole game, is to make sure that they're better off than you are. And but because you work so hard so they don't have those experiences, they also don't get those lessons. And so you got to find a way to teach those lessons while not having them struggle too much. Like it's, as a parent, you don't want your kids to struggle. And so, like, just for an example, my daughter, one one evening, my wife made dinner. I forget what it was. It was like lasagna or something like that. And she took a bite, or she got her plate. She took a bite, and she said, "Oh, this is nasty." And she's like 4 years old, and she's like, "This is nasty." And I'm like, "All right, nope, like get up, let's go." And so I put her in the car and we went to Home Depot and I bought a couple of a couple of 4x4s, and I bought a little hatchet, and we have like a little fire pit in the back, and then we went in the yard and got a couple of sticks, a couple of straight sticks. So we got home, we went in the backyard. I'm like, "All right, Lincoln, come here." I'm like, "This is a hatchet. It's a knife. This is where you're gonna chop your own firewood." And so I helped her, of course. But, we chopped little pieces of wood off of this 4x4 until we had a pile in the fire pit. And then I went and got a lighter, and I showed her how to stack the wood so it was appropriate. And Then I got a lighter and went out there and helped her light it. I got a stick and I put a hot dog on it. And I'm like, all right, here's your dinner. And for the rest of the week, you have to cook your own dinner because you were disrespectful to your mother who spent time, an hour cooking dinner for you when she could have been doing something fun. She could have been, I don't know, watching TV or talking to her friends or whatever. But she took time out of her day to cook you dinner and you said it was nasty. And that's just a mean thing to do. And I know you didn't, it was just instinctual to you. You didn't think about it, but you have to think about those kind of things. And so for the rest of the week, you have to cook your own meal and you're eating hot dogs for dinner every night for the rest of the week. This was like Wednesday. So it was like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And so every night we would go out there and I'd help her, chop her wood and, she'd have to make the pile and light the fire and hold the hot dog over the thing. And that's what she ate for the rest of the week. And so like just little things like that, like those are the ways that I've tried to put them into controlled struggle, right? Is I guess the goal. You want controlled struggle from your kids so they experience that. And I mean, that was like maybe a year and a half ago. And ever since then, she says thank you every time she gets a meal. She goes above and beyond and thanks her mother for cooking. Like, Mom, thanks for cooking dinner. Just little things like that and shows appreciation. And even if they have to fake it for so long, if you do it 21 days in a row, like it creates a habit and habits create feelings and feelings are authentic. So, yeah, I really struggle with the motivation with my kids, just trying to come up with controlled struggle situations where they can learn those lessons that are extremely important. And honestly, those are the only lessons that I use in my adult life. Things that I learned in sports, things that I learned in struggling, things that I learned in going without. Those are the lessons that I use today as a man. I don't use anything that I learned in a classroom. I don't think one thing I learned in college or in high school um, that I use today, but I use those ancillary type of lessons every day.
And that's great. So I guess she likes the lasagna now better than the hot dogs, the sausages.
And if she doesn't, she'll eat it and she'll say thank you.
It tasted great,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's so good because I think raising our kids, you have to protect them obviously, from getting like physically hurt or even mentally hurt sometimes.
Hmm.
But at the same time, you can't really try to shield them from consequences
Hmm.
because there's consequences in life, right? And I
Yep.
think yes, they might be my boy's 8.5, and he tries things and he tries that, and we try to make happen that, okay, if you don't want this, then you're getting that. Well, you got
Do
you
you
got
have
the
a
option.
you just have one son?
Just one boy. Yep.
Okay. So I
Yeah.
have a boy, he's 17 and my daughter's 5.
Oh
And
wow.
it was totally different with my son, right? Boys are just, they're just wrecking balls. They're more
Hey,
durable,
yeah. The
especially
wild
physically.
animals, they're really wild. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's totally different with my daughter though. Like I'm a total helicopter parent. Like I'm training her every single day to like be an assassin. She's she's gonna be a killer for sure. Um, but um, but yeah, I don't know. I'm just much, much more protective, and I want her to be prepared for the world. And I didn't take that approach with my son, where I was just more, you want to be buddies,
Mm.
with your son, and but my daughter, I've been a lot more like military training. Like I teach her misdirection. I teach her how to fake cry, and I teach her how to get her way, and I teach her, the difference between the carrot and the stick. Sometimes you catch more bee or more flies with honey than you do vinegar. But if the situation calls for vinegar, then you got to be tough. And so like we have her in like martial arts and gymnastics and stuff like that to keep her competitive and going up against boys. And like I don't let her use, like, they're boys, they're stronger, as an excuse or anything. She still has to win anytime they go head to head. But yeah, just I'm much more concerned about my daughter's future than my son, and I just don't know why. It's just, I don't know. It's just what comes natural, I guess, with a girl. It's different.
I also feel like that, it was your first child, right? And
Mhm.
maybe your thinking or your mindset was probably different
Oh,
because
for sure.
he's
I was a
much
different
older,
human being.
right?
There's such a big spread too. 20 years ago, I was much different than I am
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, I mean, with my boy, I try to teach him the self-talk, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes he says like, "Oh, I can't do this, I'm weak." And I said, "No, it's okay. Just take your time. Just
Yep.
push harder, never give up, just keep going." So now, we take him every day for a scooter for like an
Oh,
hour.
good.
So he goes around the circle and he goes up the hill and he's like, I'm tired, but I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up. I gonna keep going. I gonna keep
Good.
going. I'm like, keep going, man. Keep going.
Yeah, that's
And so
good. Yeah, I tell
it's
my daughter, like, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
yeah.
And, you say those things enough, and I have an entire book of, like, sayings that I really, really love. And so, like, every month, I'll pick a page, and it'll have, like, maybe 4 or 5 on there, and I will recycle them every single day until she starts repeating them back to me. And this month was, "If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." And she started repeating that back to us, especially, like, in the mixed martial arts, like, she'll come over and
What does
she's
she
like,
train?
"Do what?"
What does she train? What kind of martial arts?
Jujitsu.
Oh, nice. Okay, good.
And so, but anyway, she was like, "Yeah, I can't do this." I'm like, "Well, 1, don't ever say you can't do something. But if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." And she'll start repeating that back to us. So, um, yeah, self-talk is incredibly important.
And I think the kids today, unfortunately, they growing up in a certain bubble, right? They
Mhm,
saw overprotected, and I think guarded from many angles. And for me with my boy, I always want him to have experiences,
mhm,
good and bad, right? Because in those experiences, he would have the aha moment, like, oh, this is how it feels. This is what happened, and now he has option. Of course, I'll give him the information and support in a way where he can make the right decision to keep going
mhm.
versus giving up and calling for help, right?
Yeah. Yeah, not giving up is one of the most important lessons you can give them.
And also, I think taking the time. I always tell him, take your time. You don't have to be as fast as the other people. Maybe you're not as strong as the other kids now, but take your time. Take your time with it because with time and consistency, you will build that muscle necessary to overcome anything. But
Yep.
make sure that 1, 2, or 3 things you pick are the things you really want to apply in your life. I also think the kids today, Zach, they so much smarter than us, right?
Agreed.
In a way, like they have access to such a unbelievable information through the technology. Like my boy, he knows so much information about the planet, the universe, the human body. The other day he watched a video and I was like, wow, that's interesting. And he talked about, people dying, right? And it explained it that if no people die, right? If everybody lives forever, what's going to happen to the planet, right? And it
Mhm.
kind of makes sense. And I'm bringing that back because we talked about it, right? Like, if no one would die, there would be like billions and billions and trillions of billions of people on this planet. And you know what? It wouldn't be a nice place to be. Like,
Yeah.
it wouldn't, right? But it
It'd be
makes
like
the kid
LA
it, probably worst. It would be like
or New
a LA
York.
New York combination of those two. I think maybe like thousand times worse. But it
Mhm.
makes the kids to see the world from completely different perspective. Like the kids, I think, and he's only 8.5, right? He knows how to code. He knows how to use the AI better than I do. Like they have access to information and they know how to search the information so much faster and so much better than even we as adults are able to. Now, the thing is, what filters they use for the information and how they use the information, I think that's really the key because, it's not just so much about how much you know, but how much you do with what you know. And I
Right.
think that's where the lag is, in today's generation. They know so much, but because they know so much, they struggle with picking that few and really applying it at a high level where they can really be successful.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I run into it with my son. He's incredibly smart, but lacks experience.
Mm.
Like the application to the real world. I think that will always be the differentiator. And I mean, take a fund, for example. I can read about it all day long, and I can listen to webinars all day long, and I can go to events all day long that tell you about a fund, but you'll never know what it's like, really know what it's like until you apply it, until you do it. Like you have to do things. And I've run into that a lot where me and my son will be arguing about something, golf or whatever. And he'll throw out some theory that he read on ChatGPT or saw on social media, but has never experienced, and that I've been in that situation. Like I know what it's like. I know what it's like to fail. I know what it's like to succeed. I know what it's like to quit or whatever. And um, yeah, I think that will always be the differentiator is that these kids are smarter than us, but they are not. But where they lack,
The
um,
hardness.
yeah, motivation is the action and the application of that knowledge. We may have known less, but we applied more. Like they know more, but they apply it to the real world less. It's because they move on to the next thing really quick. They move on to the next thing really quick. They move on to the next thing really quick. I mean, this fund that we've started. I mean, this has been a 5-year project. 5 years. You say that to
Mm.
any any teenager nowadays, or
5 minutes is
just
long.
young
It's too
person.
long, man.
Exactly, 5 minutes is a long time, or 5 days is unthinkable. 5 weeks is impossible, but 5 years on something. And this is, it hasn't been every day for 5 years, but you know, 5 years ago we wrote down a plan of what we wanted to do, and this is us executing on that plan. We needed to do a lot of things before we got to this point, and now we just launched our fund. And so this has been 5 years in the making, at least a year and a half of every day, and then like full speed for the last 6 or 7 months. And I think that skill or that willingness or ability is really going to hurt the next generation. And there's a bunch of cliche things, like the short attention spans and the immediate satisfaction that everybody wants, but just being able to stick with something for a long time is I think something that they lack.
But
Which
do you think
which
that's
if
why?
if I had to guess, I think it's a bad thing, but maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. These kids also went through stuff that we didn't go through.
Yeah.
We didn't go through COVID as as kids. We weren't locked in our home. We weren't we didn't have to navigate social media. We didn't have to do all of that. We didn't have to learn
Mm.
two different ways to do math. They switched math not too long ago of how to do it. So like they went through some things that we didn't. And I think maybe every generation thinks the way that we do. They think negatively of the generation that
I
follows
think they
them.
probably do.
Yeah, I mean, I think, my dad would always say that, like, you kids don't even know what's cool,
Yeah, yeah.
type of stuff. So I think every generation has a little bit of that. And I do bake that into my assessment all the time.
Mhm.
But this fund is a great example of like my genuine concern is that this has been a 5-year project, and I think that that's going to be a really really big challenge for the next generation. If you look at it as a whole,
Mhm.
if you look at it micro, then I see it as an opportunity. If
Huge.
I'm able to teach my kids to think that way and do that way, then they're going to stand out from the crowd. Like they're going to be the only successful one,
Easy.
because
Easy.
everybody else is going to be short-sighted. And if they can have a long-term approach, and be able to stick with something and have patience and willing to go through the struggles of it, then they're gonna stand out from the pack. So there's opportunity if you look at it at a micro level, and there's real serious concern if you look at it from a macro level.
Yeah. And I think with the macro, I feel the AI, it's gonna really fill in that space. Like for example, jobs. I remember back in the early 2000s or even late 2000s, right? We used to have an assistant in the office sitting down on the front desk, and
Mhm.
her only job was to pick up the phone and connect the customers to the agents. Like, you cannot really think about that that's a viable option for anyone to really do, right? So I think with the
Yeah,
AI coming into game, yeah, it's going to definitely take a lot of these jobs away, right? But it's going to keep the salary jobs, the more higher level thinking jobs, right, kind of open. And maybe it's going to open up a new job opportunities for us to kind of elevate our game, right, as well.
yeah, but they're keeping those jobs open for a generation that don't have those skills. I mean, I think it's contradictory that AI is eliminating a lot of the brain dead type of, not brain dead, but the more simple
Yes,
jobs,
yes.
and keeping the more complex ones
Yep.
available for
Hmm.
a generation that are not complex thinkers. And
not
so,
not not all people, but I
yeah,
think
no, not all, but on a micro level, yeah. I mean, if you do a good job raising your kid and teaching your kid to be able to do that, they're gonna conquer. But for the majority of people, they can't do the complex jobs, or at least they can't do them well, and they can't do the simple jobs because AI is doing them. So where does that leave them? And
I think
um,
I think their thinking, I think their brain, it's been physiologically rewired, right? Because I think the brain develops till about 15 or 16 years old. They really say till 5, but it still develops, really develops till 15, 16 years of age. And I mean, the brain still develops, but like
it's not fully
physiologically,
developed until 25.
yeah, but like physiologically, the synapses and the structure of your brain, right? I
Mm,
think the young kids, their brain is just structured differently.
yeah,
And it's because of, like, if you go 100 years ago or 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago, right? If you go way back in time, like our processing power, just like the computers, right? It didn't need to be so fast.
yeah.
It was kill,
Hunt and
eat,
gather.
and
Yeah,
sleep, right? That was
yeah.
it. But now in today, you have so many information coming your way, and you have to be able to process them with the speed of light, like literally. And I see it on my son. Like, my son can pick up a phone and whip a whole thing on the AI and do the image and crop it and upload it and talk into the phone and add a caption to it, and voila, and he has the thing designed. I was like, how did you do that? It happened so fast, right? Because I think the processing power of the information is just so much faster than us, right?
Mhm.
Now, to give them the ability to control that speed and slow it down and stop it down, that's a muscle, right? As well, which needs to be developed. Otherwise, it's going to go chaotic at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, that reminds me. Have you ever heard of the dead internet or the
No,
dead web?
no.
So the dead web is so imagine this scenario a couple years from now. AI posts content for you. All of your likes and comments and everything are also AI, bots on
Hmm.
the internet. And so AI is liking AI's content, and it kind of like works humans out of social media altogether. Even like video and images and stuff is all going to be AI and avatars and everything else. Anyways, I heard that the other day that dead internet is like a real
It's
a
coming.
real thing that's like picking up momentum, I guess.
It might be here already. It almost feels like some people they're using a lot of bots for certain things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So right before this, I had a call with a company that does AI phone calls,
Mm-hmm.
and it was scary. It was scary how
Real.
real it was.
Yeah.
And so like we're thinking about, hiring them to build these agents for us
Mhm.
that call for collections.
The undisciplined agents, which they can't wake up in the morning. You mean?
It's it's scary how real it is, man. And so I just had a call with them like on what's today? Is today Tuesday or Wednesday?
Wednesday today.
Today's Wednesday. So I had a call with them on Friday, and they already put together like several demos for stuff that I was just like talking on a Zoom call with them like this. And I'm like, oh yeah, we could use it for this case study or this use or this or that. Just maybe a couple sentences each one. And they put together these demos. It was wicked, man. It was so crazy. It's like black magic. and so like he even put a demo together where he calls the number and oh actually, you know what?
Let's play it.
I have the number that I can call.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Let's see. Check this out. All right, let's call this. Let's see if can you hear this?
No,
Oh, hold
Yes,
on.
I can hear you. So this
I
is
can hear
Susan
you.
from Associated Court Reporters. How can I assist you today?
I'm having trouble with
Hello?
an invoice.
I'm sorry to hear you're having trouble with an invoice. I'd be happy to help resolve this for you. Could you please let me know which invoice you're referring to or describe the issue you're experiencing?
Invoice 2726.
Thank you for letting me know. You're referring to invoice number 2726. Could you please tell me a bit more about the trouble you're experiencing with this invoice?
I just don't
For
think
example, is it a question?
I don't think it's correct. I mean, I think it's just too much.
Thank you for sharing your concern. I want to make sure we address this properly. Could you let me know what specifically seems incorrect about the invoice amount, or if there are
line number
particular charges you'd like us-
two. Line number 2 is just too expensive.
Thank you for pointing that out. I understand that line number 2 on invoice 2726 seems too expensive to you. Could you tell me what you were expecting for that line item, or if there's a specific issue with the service or
Look,
rate
hey,
listed there?
stop. Can you just have a manager call me?
Absolutely. I can have a manager call you to discuss this further. Could you please let me know the best phone number and time for them to reach you? I want to make sure we address your concerns.
Crazy.
It's crazy, huh?
And she even had the American accent, which I like.
Yeah, so you can change that up. You can change like how formal they are.
Mhm.
If you like, maybe if you're in New Orleans, you can have like a little New Orleans type of thing. Um,
So
and
do you write a sequence for them? Like,
I
okay,
didn't. They no, like I said, it was just a call, and I'm like, hey, we have a court reporting company, and we might use this for collections. Just call about an invoice number, and has it been paid, stuff like that. And they put it together in just a couple days. So
crazy.
and so I'm trying to think of all these use cases that we could utilize this for. But I guess it's pretty regulated. When it comes to phone calls, people have to opt in and stuff like that.
I see when people call, then it's gotta like let them know that this is action AI, not a physical person calling.
Yeah, it'll say like this is a recording. Now, if they're a client of yours already, then they've already kind of consented to communicate with
Okay.
your business. But it can't cold call. A bunch of people. So if I wanted to cold call a bunch of investors and see if they wanted to invest in the fund, I can't do that unless they've opted in. So I'm trying to think of like that. If we have a number where, and then you can always use it on inbound because you don't
Mhm.
need people's permission on inbound. So I'm thinking about having them train an agent on our fund, and we'll have a hotline that people can always call and ask questions about our fund that the agent can answer.
Yeah, I love it, man. Send me the info. We actually looking on the property management side for some solutions like that too. There's a couple companies, but I spoke with some people that it's not so legit. It sounds much better actually.
Yeah, it was really good. Like his demo they did was better than what I just did. But yeah, they just sent me the pricing. I think it's like 4,000 and some change to set up, and then it's like 35 cents a minute. call, and that's pretty much it.
That's not bad though.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's 24/7, right? That's
Yeah.
the best part.
Yeah, I mean, and think about how much you're paying somebody to do it now.
Mm-hmm.
And they can transfer calls. They can, so if they get caught up and they're like, hey, I'm not sure about that answer, but would you like me to transfer you to John? They say, yeah. Then they'll call you and they'll say, hey, John, I have this customer on the line. This is the issue. They asked to speak to you. Do you want to take it, or do you want me to tell them that you'll call them back at a later time? And so then you're talking to the agent and you say, hey, I'm wrapped up right now. I'll call them back at 4:30. And so then they'll jump on the other line back with the customer and say, hey, John is in a meeting right now. He's not available, but he will call you back at 4:30. So
that's great, man.
Yeah.
Does that work over the text as well?
Yes.
If people can text instead of making a phone call?
Yeah. But again, they have to opt in.
Yeah.
Because text is outgoing.
I see.
But I mean, you could do like an agent on your website or something, one of those things where you can type in questions and it'll answer questions for you.
And I would be guessing for our tenants, we can get them opt in on the onboarding from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
So that way they know it's an AI, but it's a great service for them to just get whatever they need to get done.
Yeah, so that's another way that we want to use it. So we own a recruiting company as well. And so we have recruiters that are calling people, and whenever they get in touch with somebody, they schedule a call to schedule an interview with us before we send them to the client that is ultimately, would potentially hire them. And so our recruiters will set up phone calls with the AI moving forward, and the AI will be trained on all the questions, all the interview questions, and then you get this report and stuff and transcript of the conversation, and then based on how that goes, we'll forward the report, the recording, and all of that onto the client. Then they can decide if they want to interview them or not.
That's sweet, man.
Yeah.
So
yeah, AI it's taken off, man, and it's rapidly changing. Every day, I feel like, at least every week.
Yeah, for sure.
New update, a new twist, a new which has been our hesitation in investing in any sort of AI. So if AI is going like this, and you jump in the middle, in a month, it's already far beyond where you invested in. You invested in an old model.
Yeah. But I think at the same time, it's like, at least for us in the real estate space, the implementation, right? Again, it's the implementation of the technology, right? And the speed of the implementation. Well, people, they're so behind, man. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right. They still not using portals. They still picking up cash from the tenants and going to the bank to actually deposit the money. So
that's how insurance is too. Insurance is extremely dusty.
yeah. And I think that's really where is the big opportunity for you, right?
Yeah.
So, Zach, let me switch the page a little bit. What is that one thing about you which no one really knows, and you rarely get to talk about?
Like business wise or personal wise?
It can go both ways, man. Either or.
I'm really into superheroes.
Okay. I wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah. I read something a long time ago that that people that enjoy superheroes, comic books or superhero movies or anything like supernatural or anything like that, that in the study that they did, they were more successful, shape that however you want, but they were more successful in life or business because they think that there's more out there, that the capabilities are beyond what we see every day. Like, they're open to what is possible. The window of what is possible is bigger for the people that are into that kind of thing. And so, yeah, that's always kind of been, I've always taken pride in liking superhero stuff for that reason.
So I have a comment on that. So I actually heard that the superheroes they were really made for people to get away from God and
Yep.
really downgrade their ability and attach those limitations to superhero, right? Because God, it's limitless, right? Like
Mhm.
there's no ceiling to it. Like it's the ultimate. So it makes people actually think like so much, right? But when you attach the superhuman power or superhero now, you can comprehend it, right? And
Mhm.
I think comprehension it's important, but it puts a cap on you,
Sure.
right?
Hmm. Oh, I've never related the two. So
Okay,
I
all right.
think that, you know, God is God and superheroes are superheroes. But yeah,
I,
I'm really into
I
superheroes.
that's what I heard. I don't know. It might not be even true. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fact check. Please let us know in the comments below. And so I know
Yeah.
you have
And
the
then, well, and one other thing too is that something that's never talked about in school, something that's never talked about in seminars, something that's never talked about in webinars or conferences or events or trainings or anything. All of that material always comes out of a book. I think the one thing that anybody needs if they want to be successful in anything, if you want to be a good parent, if you want to be a good business owner, if you want to be a good employee, or if you want to be a good neighbor, a good steward of people's
good neighbor
money,
state.
or
State Farm is there, right? What is that saying? Like good names.
yeah. Well, if you want to be good at anything or successful in anything, I think you need one trait, which can be learned and and improved, is have a figured out about you. If you can figure things out, then you'll be successful in anything. Because 90 or 100% of being a parent is new. Every day is new. You were the first day you were a parent, that was new to you. The second day you were a parent, that was new because you've never been a parent for 2 days, right? You've never been a parent on the third day, you've never been a parent on the fourth day of somebody's life. So everything is new.
And I think parenting a
90
4-year-old and 40-year-old,
Yeah.
it's a very different parenting, but it's still parenting.
I mean, and even like being an entrepreneur, 90% or more, 99% of what you do as an entrepreneur is your first time doing it. It's new. It's a
That's
new
why I love it.
problem, it's a new issue, it's a new employee, it's a new client, it's a new personality, it's a new, you know, concept or whatever. So if you have a figure it out about you, then you'll be successful. And so do anything and everything that you can to develop that skill of figuring things out, whether it's working on puzzles or whether it's, playing games or whether it's, working on your patience or keeping your frustration in check or, whatever it is, develop that skill of having a figure it out about you and anybody will hire you. If you're able to communicate that, if you're able to display that you have a figure it out about you, then they will hire you. Or you could start any business that you want. You can figure it out.
But I think sometimes to figure it out, you have to go through the experiences
Of
and
course.
put yourself into situations so you can really know what are your strengths and weaknesses, and then utilizing on the strengths you kind of got given or earning through your lifetime, whatever that is, right?
And the quickest way to learn is to do and fail.
Nothing
It's
like
the
a failure, man.
quickest and the most concrete way of learning
Yeah,
is failing.
love it, man. So Zach, who's your superhero and what's your superpower, man?
I go back and forth between flying and living forever,
Okay,
like being immortal.
okay.
Uh, and I think flying is the short-sighted wish. I think it'd be awesome.
You can get a
Uh,
jetpack these days, right?
yeah, true. And
Unless you get blown up to pieces, I guess they're still figuring out it.
and then living forever is my hedge on just in case there's nothing after this.
I love it.
Yeah, and I just posted something on LinkedIn the other day. Like, if you had one superpower, what would it be? And it was an AI video of somebody flying.
But I think now with the AI, don't you think it gives us the ability to sort of live forever and kind of leave behind ourselves?
Maybe we're able to duplicate us. Maybe.
So I know we come into the end. What is that one capital truth you live by and die by?
Never quit. Never quit.
Love it.
So I mean, even and it's in everything that I do. But I'm an all or nothing kind of guy. Like I either won't even get involved, won't touch it, or I do it 100% until it's done. And I do that with tasks. I do that with even if I'm like lifting weights. I don't do sets. I don't do like 3 sets of 10. I don't
18.
do
Yeah.
no. I just lift until I can't lift anymore, and then rest, get some water, whatever, then go back and lift until I can't rest anymore. So a lot of times, like my sets will be, say I'm doing a bench press, I'll do 18, and then 9, and then 4 because I'm so exhausted from going all out. It's just the way I've always been, and so yeah, and think big. Think big. I mean, there's a good book. It's like 10x is easier than 2x. You're probably familiar with it, but it takes just the same amount of energy and effort to do something 10 times bigger than whatever you're doing now. So think big. It's there's no point in doing things small or mediocre.
I mean, in case if you don't live forever, right? Life is too short. At least you make it count.
Yeah.
While you here, one thing I realized about the never giving up, because I also when I locked in, I just stick with it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes quitting it might seem like a failure in a way. However, sometimes it's switching and pivoting into something else, right? Because you might be
Yeah.
going a route, and maybe there's a better route for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily giving up; it's about switching into something was better. So how do you adjust on that?
That's a great question. So in the other rule that I live by, and that anybody should live by, is that at any moment, you have to be willing to sacrifice what you are for what you will become. Not who you are, but what you are. You have to be able to sacrifice that, whether that's a group of friends, whether that is a company that you work for, whether that's the career that you chose, whether that's whatever. You have to be willing to sacrifice what you are for what you will become. As long as it's an evolution, right? As long as it's moving up, don't move backwards, but you have to be willing to. I'm not saying that you have to throughout your life. Maybe things go really smooth and you never have to do that, but you have to be willing to do it. If the situation calls for it, you have to be willing to switch. You have to be willing to sacrifice who you are for what you will become. And it really is a sacrifice. Like your previous identity is no longer a thing. This is my new identity. Like I used to be an insurance broker, and it led me to where I am now. I am no longer an insurance broker. I mean, I can place business, but I sacrificed that. We sold our brokerage firms to evolve into a fund. Right? We sacrificed our agency, which is thriving and doing really good, for something greater. And so the willingness to be able to do that and not hold on to things for too long is, I think that's a superpower. At any moment, you have to be willing to sacrifice what you are for what you will become.
So good, man. Now I know why your podcasts are usually 2 to 3 hours, because certainly, I mean, you can spend a half a day over here just having a conversation.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the viewers, they're gonna have so much value out of this. So Zach, I really
Oh, I have
appreciate
one
the
more
time.
thing.
Yep.
I have one more thing before we jump off. So I was thinking about that question, what do people not know about me? So every single day since 2015, late 2015, every single day without exception, the first thing I do every single morning is I listen to this speech by a guy named Eric Thomas. And it's called How Bad Do You Want It? And he tells a story. He tells a story about a kid that wants to be successful. And he goes to this guru and he's like, "Hey, I want to be on the same level you're on." I want to be successful. I want to be like you. And the guru says, you want to be like me? I'll meet you tomorrow at the beach at 4 a.m. The young man shows up 4 a.m. He's ready to rock and roll. He's got on a suit. And the guru says, how bad do you want to be successful? He said, real bad. He said, then walk out into the water. So he walks out into the ocean, and it goes like, water's like waist deep. And he asked him again. He said, how bad do you want to be successful? And he said, real bad. He said, then walk a little further. And the guy's in the water. He's like, man, this guy's crazy. This guy's crazy. I'm about to get up.
The water's all cold and shivering now.
Yep. And he said, I thought you said you wanted to be successful. And he said, I do. He said, then walk a little further. And it went right up to his mouth. He's like, man, this guy's out of his mind. I'm about to get out of here. And the guru says, I thought you said you wanted to be successful. And he said, I do. Then he said, walk a little further. And he walked a little further, and the guru grabbed his head and he held him underwater. The guy's kicking and screaming, can't breathe, And right before he passes out, he raises him up. He said, I got a question for you. He said, when you were underwater, what did you want to do? He said, I just wanted to breathe. He said, when you want to succeed as bad as you wanted to breathe, then you'll be successful. He said, when you were underwater, you weren't thinking about somebody calling you. You weren't thinking about the basketball game. You weren't thinking about some party. You weren't thinking about girls. The only thing you were thinking about was, how do I get some air? And when you get to the point where you can focus enough and phase out those distractions and be laser focused on something, like when you're underwater about to die, only thing on your mind is that I need to get some air. When you can focus like that on demand, then you'll be successful. So when you want to be successful as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. So every day, every single day since 2015, I listen to that speech. It's my alarm on my phone. So
I love it.
And that it's just a good start to the day. Just get your mind right from the get-go. You don't have time to get distracted by LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever, or even anything that's going on in the family or the house. Laser focus from the moment that you wake up.
I love it, Zach. Thank you, my brother. I really appreciate you. And that's a wrap on this episode of Capital Truths, the unscripted journeys of those who find the future. If something sparked your thinking today, don't keep it to yourself. Share the episode, leave a comment, and keep the momentum going. Money is just a tool. Clarity is the game. Stay curious, stay bold, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.